Today, Rengin Aslanoğlu and Begüm Ulusoy will give a presentation about their study titled an international survey on residential lighting and analysis of winter term results for our advanced lighting research in interiors course. So I would like to briefly present Rengin Aslanoğlu, and she works as an assistant professor at Wrocław, if I'm pronouncing right, University of Environmental and Life Sciences. And her research interests include perception of color and effects of artificial lighting on attention and performance. Begüm Ulusoy, she is a senior lecturer in the Interior Architecture and Design School of Design, University of Lincoln. And her research embraces research methods, interior experience, and color and material applications in interiors. And I would like to thank them for accepting my invitation and their valuable contribution to our course. Now, I would like to welcome Rengin and Begüm Hoca and invite them to make their presentation on about their research.
Thank you so much for your kind presentation, Eren Hocam. I think I should share my screen, but say the host disabled me. So can you just let me share my screen and the presentation?
I think Fulya Hoca will arrange that. Fulya Hocam.
If it is not, sorry, if it's not working, I can send the presentation.
Olması gerekiyor. Oturup sağlayabilirsiniz.
Still it says host disabled, but
okay, it confirms now. Yeah. Like, thank you so much. So this is a very nice presentation. It's so nice to be in Izmir again, even if it is virtually. And I'm so happy to share this time with you. This is our second paper. The first paper was about our pilot study. This is our second paper about an international survey on residential interior lighting, which is significantly ignored topic before COVID-19, especially residential interiors. It's not only in Turkey, in all countries all over the globe. It's significantly ignored, and COVID taught us actually that we need them more than we really understood it. So starting the presentation, the first author is Rengin Aslanoğlu, and also we have other contributors here, Piotr Paraki, Jan Kazak, and Sebite Yakani. I'm not sure I can pronounce it right, so Dr. Sepide. So I want to thank them all as well. So as we are still living through with the outbreak of COVID-19, the relationship between the building conditions, especially of residential areas, and human well-being becomes more significant, especially nowadays. Residential areas become multi-purpose inevitably. For instance, we are making this presentation online instead of being together in person, face-to-face. In short, our homes are now our offices, schools, and living areas, our gyms, our coffee shops, it's like everything. And so this new multi-purpose nature of our homes bring lots of needs to be analyzed. And we know that daylight and artificial light are the keys in having high quality living areas, and also collecting the subjective assessment of residents about lighting conditions in each home can be very informative. So with our study, we are aiming to identify the particular needs of residents in terms of day and artificial lighting, and to guide them for future lighting studies. Sorry, I cannot see my screen as well.
Maybe Begüm Hocam, I can share if you. So can you see my presentation now?
I can see.
Yes,
Okay.
And yes, thank you so much, Rengin, for that. For this is a nice presentation of where we have done that. For this AUMB research came together from UK, Turkey, Poland, and Sweden for gathering data from North Central, Northwestern Europe, and Eastern Asia. We prepare a survey approximately containing 40 questions. Some of the questions were open-ended and some of them had multiple choice answers. Before distributing our survey, we tested it with a pilot study, as I mentioned before. Also, you can find that study and check the clarity and understanding of the survey questions. Actually, I recommend you to check that study as well because it's quite informative and in terms of providing some strategies to creating a methodology for your own MA study, it might be very helpful to you. After that, we did some modifications for sure with the wording and provided some additional explanations and photographs. For the main study, we distributed our survey to 500 participants aged between 18 to 66 years old, who mostly had university degree or higher and had monthly income above the national average of each country. We collected survey results between November 2020 and January 2021, where lighting conditions can be really challenging if you consider the countries like Sweden, UK, and Poland, and even in Turkey in some cities for sure. Yes, thanks so much. If you look more closer to Turkey, for example, if you look at that Amasya, Ankara, Bursa, Kocaeli, Tekirdağ, they're actually quite cold and dark during winter terms. So it is mostly very challenging conditions that we look at that specific interior elements in lighting. If we look more close to Turkey, we could reach 13 different cities, mostly located on west. However, we mostly lack the cities on east side. That is a shame. There's always such kind of limitations of these studies. You will be conducting studies, or maybe you will conducting more complicated studies for your PhDs in future. And this is some kind of a methodological limitations that we faced a lot during studies. Sometimes you simply cannot reach a group of people, which really limits your sample group, and you should consider them when you're analyzing these results. Next slide, please. Thank you. We distributed the survey in 4 different languages, which are the primary languages of the UK, Turkey, Poland, and Sweden. We use the website called Survey Lighting, which we prepared especially for this study. And when a participant invited to our survey, the participant can select the language of the survey from drop-down menu. And to just start the survey easily, the survey questions ask demographics of the participants and geographical features of the residents and physical characteristics of the living areas. I want to highlight here because we ask our participants to evaluate their living areas, where they spend most of their time in a day, which can be a corner of their living room or a separate area they are using as offices. Also, we collect information on daylight and artificial lighting conditions of those areas and participant self-evaluations. Besides existing lighting conditions, we collect information about sustainability, smart lighting technologies, being aware of national lighting policies or not, and individual solutions related to lighting they enact and planning to apply in future in the living areas. Here, I want to mention my beloved lighting lecturer in Bilkent University, Cengiz Yener. He died more than 10 years ago. Unfortunately, we lost him. However, he always discussed that about the policies. Policies in Turkey, in many other countries, but especially in Turkey, are not bad. Policies are good, but no one are applying them. He was talking about that fire safety doors or fire safety regulations. There are always some fire safety equipments in each building, but when there's a fire happens, because of maintenance, lack of maintenance, none of them is working. So mostly policies are not that essential problem, but the essential problem of awareness of people, awareness of user and maintenance. So it was a very important point that we want to discuss in this study, because awareness is important. You can put the best policies ever, but if people are not using it, there is no point to have them. Similarly, you can have the best beautiful design, which is sustainable, which is universal design, which has multi-sensory experience. But if people will not be using it, there's again no point to have them. Slide 6, please. Thank you. So the results from our study consist some percentages, correlations, and team extractions using SPSS and NVivo, which I recommend to familiarize yourself because you will need them. Sooner or later, you will need them. From our 500 participants, we gathered a great amount of data about the characteristic of residential and living areas. 70.4% of participants live in an apartment flat, mostly built after 1990. And the average floor area of those flats were like 132 square meters. And the average floor areas of living area is like 34 square meters. The 55.4 of the living areas ceiling height were less than 3 meters. The ceiling and walls were mostly painted white, which is painful for me, who is working on color a lot. The floor surfaces and furniture were brown, quite expected result. 20.2 of the living areas were south-facing, 80.2 were east, and 16 were north, and 15.8 were west-facing. So we don't have a certain geographic orientation of living areas, which gives some kind of actually variety to our work. Can we go to next slide, please? So when we look at the number of hours and activities, it is again a bit expected, but still interesting results. We also ask about the number of hours spent and the mostly done activities in living areas. Most of the participants spent 3 to 8 hours in their living areas and spending this time using their computers. Spending a great amount of time in the same place for a long period, given the type of the activities done, emphasize the importance of residential lighting. From existing literature, we are aware of the factors affecting well-being and visual comfort about lighting in office environments, where most screen-related tasks are being conducted. However, we lack studies about residential lighting, which we hope our study can guide future research and inspire young lighting designers like you actually, because there's a big gap in literature. If you look at the literature, you will see a lot of studies about office lighting. When it comes to residential design, somehow it seems like easy design topic, which is not. And COVID taught us in a very hard way that it is essential. An average human being spends their life in interiors, like 80% of their life in interiors. So mostly we are living in interiors, and most of it in our homes, even before COVID. So there is a huge gap, and it is very promising field if you want to focus in the future. Can we go to the next slide, please? The lighting is a primary source of light. It plays an important role in health, energy saving, environmental protection, also view out from interiors, reduce stress. If you look at just research about workspaces, even a small amount of view out is very important and essential. So we are seeing similar tendencies in residential interiors as well. According to our results, most of the living areas have 1 or 2 windows, and 40.4 of the windows have some obstruction in the front. On a winter day, direct sunlight penetrates the living areas between 4 to 6 hours in all countries except the UK. In the UK, sunlight penetrates only 1 to 3 hours, if you are lucky, I can say that. We also gathered information about shading device in the living areas and pointed out that participants used their shading device either for obtaining privacy or preventing direct sunlight, which may cause glare and overheating. It is worth noting that in summer, participants didn't draw them even if the recorded average sunlight is high in Poland and Turkey, whereas in Sweden they prefer to draw halves, and in the UK shading devices were all drawn all the time, which may be caused by forgetting to show adaptive behaviors in shading device usage. So people rarely adjust them, and once they change, they left them in the position for a long time, which can hinder sustainability and increase energy demands for cooling the living areas in summertime, which is quite interesting actually, because behavior, as I say at the beginning of this presentation, behavior is everything. If you cannot change the behavior of the or habits of your user, it will not be working. You have very small chance to be successful as a designer if you don't understand the behaviors and habits and approaches of your user. Can we go next slide, please? Without getting into more detail, briefly, artificial lighting satisfaction and the daylight satisfaction are the lowest among all other evaluations. Sweden has the lowest rates for both of them. Both artificial lighting and daylighting were evaluated as sufficient by all other countries. Nearly half of the participants stated that daylight in their living areas were uniformly distributed, and again, Sweden got the lowest rate. Most of the participants from Poland and Turkey say that their artificial lighting is bright enough to conduct their visual task comfortably. I doubt it, but they said it. And when we look at artificial lighting uniformly, Turkey and the UK have highest rates, and Sweden again is the lowest among all countries. Next slide, please. With further statistic tests, we evaluated the correlation between all factors that belong to day and artificial lighting. So sunlight exposure and ratio of windows have a negative correlation with satisfaction with daylighting, which means that when there is more sunlight in the living area, satisfaction with daylight decreases. Whereas when daylight sufficiently, uniformity of daylight and view out increases, satisfaction with daylight increasing too. Uniformity of daylight increase when sunlight exposures and the ratio of windows in the living areas decrease. And uniformity of daylighting increase with increased daylight sufficiency and view out. When we look at sufficiency of daylighting, the ratio of the windows and sunlight exposure have negative effect on it. However, when view out increase, the sufficiency of daylight increases too. Also, some other correlations were found between ratios of windows, sunlight exposures, and view out. I think this is very nice presentation of that, the results that is actually designed by Rengin, thanks to her. This is very clear correlation, and you don't need to be interested in sunlight specifically or daylight, but you can use such kind of presentation techniques for yourself as well. Can we go to next slide, please? Thank you. The basic features of artificial lighting have the potential to improve residential lighting quality, which we pointed out with our results. For example, satisfaction with artificial lighting increases with brightness, sufficiency, uniformity, and higher CRE. Also, sufficiency of the artificial light increase with increased uniformity, brightness, and CRI. Next slide, please. Besides multi-choice questions, we also asked detailed questions in our survey. In this diagram, you can see the word clouds for answers that respondents gave about applied lighting adjustments on left and their desired lighting adjustments on right in the living areas. The most mentioned words were lamp, bulb, LED, and change for applied lighting adjustments. So they mostly changed their bulbs with the LEDs. And for desired lighting adjustments, most mentioned words were lamp, change, LED, illuminate, and window. Next slide, please. From those answers, by using MVivo, we extracted three main themes, which are adding artificial lighting, altering artificial lighting, and sustainability. Most of our respondents add extra portable lamps and are planning to add ceiling general lighting. Also, most of them replace their light bulbs with energy saving ones, and the majority of the respondents state that they would like to enlarge their window sizes if they could redesign their living areas from the beginning. Here we can see some of the answer examples that respondents provided. For example, one of the participants said that I located the lighting away from my vision so that they do not disturb my eyes, or I added multiple points of light instead of a ceiling lamp in one place. It is interesting to see that they know the lighting rules is quite well, that we are teaching in courses like that, in programs like that you are in now. People inherently know that they need for lighting conditions. However, they don't know how to create it that well because they are not designers. Next slide, please. And one of the most striking results, definitely, obtained from the question about national policies, like 80% of respondents from all countries were not aware of their national lighting policies, which may be caused by the complex and expert-focused nature of the policies. So policies are important. As I say, they need to be revised because they are mostly very expert-focused and they are hard to understand for laymen. So it is important to make them more communicative. However, that doesn't mean policies are wrong. Maybe policies are perfect, but because they are not communicating well or people not aware of their existing, they are not that helpful now. Next slide, please. So what we briefly conclude for this study is, regardless of country, lighting sufficiency was found as the most important factor in the determining day and artificial lighting satisfaction. Most of the respondents are using LEDs in their living areas. However, a significant amount of them is still using incandescent, fluorescent, and hologram lamps. Incandescents are mostly banned in many countries recently, so I think this will go down and down, hopefully. Participants mostly augmented their lamps brightness level, uniformities, and CRI according to their needs, and most of them are willing to let more daylight in by increasing their window size. Again, we are seeing some strategies. They know what they want, but they are not 100% aware that how they can do it. Next slide, please. So as a conclusion, we identified the occupants' priorities and needs about residential lighting, which we hope that future studies will fill the gap in literature by using the potential factors that we pointed out with our study. Also, we will love to invite you our summer term survey. We will be conducting in soon, very soon. So we are aiming to conducting another survey like that for summer terms. So we will love to have you as our participants. Moreover, we will love to be a participate for other studies if you are interested in this area, in this very specific field of interior architecture. I can easily talk for all of us in this group, but especially for Rengin Hocam and me. We will love to hear you more about that. And thank you for listening. If you have any questions, we have, I think, quite a lot of time now. And thank you so much for help, Rengin Hocam.
Of course, with pleasure. Okay, now I'm just stop sharing my screen. Yep.
Thank you very much for this informative presentation. Thank you for all. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you for your
kind invitation.
Thank you for your kind invitation. And I want to say that's very true that what you say. If you have a study and if you want to stop, there's something wrong in that study. That study should make you work on more. So it's a good point. And thank you so much. It was my pleasure to be here. And I'm very sorry for my background noise. I had a Wi-Fi problem here.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hope to see you in the future. Thank you.